Yes, there is a rising contender in the Big Ten, and their names are the University of Southern California, or USC is what a lot of people like to say. The USC Trojans, man. I think that they are a better team than what people are giving them credit for. I think that we should be on the lookout for how good that they could be down the stretch, and just their complete schedule as well for how that they're going to match up and be prepared to beat down teams that they, at the beginning of the season, and I think we actually broke down their schedule if I remember right. I'm not sure. But I know my guy Eli Sanders is out there, friend of the show, follows us on Twitter and everything. Appreciate him. But of course, a guy that I was high on even when he was at UNLV, finally taking the reins of this team since week 1 with 𝗕𝘂𝘂𝗶𝗲𝗀𝗃𝗃, and then Lincoln Riley trying to not seem like he's such a knucklehead, and can actually get this team rolling, right? So let's get into it, man. Number 1, the best offensive ranking in the country, 41.3 according to the SP Plus rankings that ESPN does, right? They, despite having a dominant start, are ranked outside of the top 25, which I think a lot of teams in the country have obviously been getting a huge step up from a team like Florida State that beats Alabama, right? Alabama goes in there this week and is very dominant. And then we skyrocket to, I believe it was like 17 or 14th, and now we're in the top 10. Look, the fact of the matter here is 𝗕𝘂𝘂𝘂𝗀𝘂𝘂 has been going insane with the opponents that they've been presented with so far this year. Missouri State obviously gets an ass kicking at 73-13. Welcome to FBS, young gentlemen. And then Georgia Southern, who's always been a pretty decent team in the group of 5, goes in there and gets a smackaroonie as well, 59-20. This week they go against the Purdue Boilermakers and going against Barry Odom and the boys out there after he did what he did at UNLV and now has found himself in another big boy job, right? Through 2 games in 2025 so far, USC has scored 132 points, averaging 60 points per game, which ranks number 2 nationally. They're averaging 11.2 yards per play, totaling 1,352 yards of total offense so far. As you see, 𝗕𝘂𝘂𝘂𝘂𝘂 is out there, 707 yards, 6 touchdowns, and leading the nation in QBR, according to ESPN, at a 96.7 QBR. He's one of the best, if not the best quarterback in the country. If you decide to, obviously they haven't played the best of competition, but what he's been given, obviously people have him in very, very high regards. Here's what's cool. A 68.8 third down conversion rate and a perfect 12 for 12 record in the red zone. Something that we really haven't seen from them. There was a lot of difficulty actually getting in the red zone these last couple years, and 12 for 12 is not a bad record to have when you're, about to play Purdue up there in your first Big Ten matchup. The passing game has been efficient, right? While Jaden has come off, other people have stepped up to the plate. 810 passing yards, 77.2 completion percentage as a team, and 0 interceptions thrown from not only him, but the rest of the quarterbacks that are on that staff. The rushing attack has been absolutely dominant. 8.6 yards per carry. They've already accumulated through 2 games, 542 rushing yards. Jaden leads the Big Ten in passing with 707, which we talked about. Leads the league in touchdown passes with 6 through 2 games, and has a 5-1 record as a starter for the Trojans, which is very important because if you remember last year, and one guy that's actually having a little bit of struggle for the USC Trojans, I'm sorry, not the USC Trojans, but the Louisville Cardinals, is a guy by the name of Miller Moss. And he was supposed to be the future. Remember that sensational bowl game before the year that he actually took the mantle? And then a couple of games inside the season, Lincoln Riley decides to pull the trigger and go with ultimately who we all here, well, when everybody was here, we collectively thought 𝗕𝘂𝘂𝘂𝘂𝘂𝘂𝘂𝘂 was going to be better. after having a really good game against Georgia Southern, there's a lot, offensive wise that people are either not surprised about or surprised about it around the country. I think it's kind of a 50-50 split. I think a lot of people expected this team to be having an offensive prowess, right? USC's defense, on the other hand, which I think is really the talking point because they've been so porous over the years. They're ranked 38th best nationally with a rating of 22.3 in the SP Plus rankings. The defense has allowed only 33 points through 2 games, 16.5 points per game. Now, if you take into account that their backups were coming in a lot of those games, I mean, beating teams by 59 points and 73 points, you take a beating in all those rankings as a squad. But I can tell you when the starters were in there, it looked really, really good. Opponents, their opponents are only converting 24.1% of their third downs against USC. The defense has forced 5 turnovers, including a pick 6, and has yet to allow a rushing touchdown. Impressive. So whatever teams are going to go and play USC, they got to understand that this is a better, regardless of the opponents that they play, this is a better rushing defense than what they've had in the past. I don't even think they've started out this well under Lincoln Riley as far as their rushing defense is concerned. And through 2 games, USC has accumulated 21 tackles for loss, 9 sacks. This actually outpaced their 2024 production. 53 tackles for a loss, 21 sacks in the entire season. So they're closing in pretty quick to where they were last year just as a squad. Look, I think going against this game in Purdue, they're going to come out swinging strong. I know Barry Odom's going to have those guys rolling. He's going to have those guys looking right. But I think USC feels a little bit, when you start out so strong like this, and even your backups and your depth have been really, really good as a unit, like we said at the later part of this, they are outpacing their 2024 production just in 2 games of what they had as far as the defensive side already here. And who knows what it would have looked like if 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝗶𝗲𝘀𝗀 maybe would have taken the reins at the beginning part of last season, right away. But, of course, you can't pull the trigger after, Miller Moss was there to do his thing. And, it just so happened that the universe works how it works with the transfer portal. Now he finds himself in another squad. But I think that this team is actually one of those teams that we actually have to watch out for moving forward and keep a keen eye on. Like, look, here's what their schedule looks like and why this makes it so interesting in my aspect. It's almost like, sorry, I keep hitting the mic. It's almost like when you look at their schedule, they're planning to beat, it's almost like going up a ladder and the ladder gets a little bit harder. I think this is the opposite of what like Michigan went through in their national championship run. Now, I'm not saying that they're a national championship team, but they beat Missouri, then they beat Georgia State, who's I think is significantly better than Missouri State. Now they're going to go play Purdue, which they're obviously significantly better than Georgia Southern. And then Purdue, after that, they go and play Michigan State with Adam Childs and Jonathan Smith out there, which we could probably say at this point that Michigan State's a better team than Purdue. And then Michigan State to 9th ranked Illinois right after that, which I think everybody in the country could say that they're significantly better than Michigan State. And then they hit a bye week. And so, they're going to be playing 2 of their toughest games in the first part, at these places. Like they got to go to West Lafayette, Indiana to go play Purdue. They got to go to Champaign to go play Illinois. Then you hit your bye week. And then they hit 2 killers right back to back after this, one at home and one at away. And it's kind of following that trend. I think this is kind of the perfect schedule to get your team not only callous to beat better teams, but towards the end of the season, you can kind of prove to yourself like, man, we can beat good teams. And then you got to go to, Michigan comes to them, which we're kind of filling the waters of Michigan a little bit. We're not saying that they're a bad team. They'll have Sharon Moore back. At this point in time, he's only serving, I believe, a 2-game suspension as their head coach. So they'll have him back right off the bye. And then they go to Notre Dame and play them in a night game at 7:30. Playing them in Indiana there. So again, progressively gets worse and worse and worse. Then they hit a bye week after playing those games, which I think is perfect. And then they hit a 5-game stretch of we don't really know where these teams are going to be. Nebraska, I mean, I have them as a runner-up in the Big Ten this year, and they're kind of not proving me right so far by the way that they're playing. But I think if you watch a halftime speech from Matt Rule, he ain't settling for anything less. He literally wants to run a score up on everybody, and he doesn't want he wants shutouts every single game if he can. Then they get a little bit of break with Northwestern. Man, Preston Stone is my boy, man. I don't know what the collapse happened between him and then transferring to Northwestern, but it kind of drives me nuts. Iowa played a really good game against Iowa State. We know that defense is a great tune-up game for them, especially towards the end of the season when you're really starting to feel your depth. And then they have to go to Autzen Stadium and play Oregon. Tough game. Then right after that, they play UCLA. So we'll see what happens. If they can make it to a Big Ten championship. But I think the way that this whole thing is being set up, I think that, they're in a really good position to be really, really good for the rest of the year. And I think USC is one of those scary teams that you got to really look out for. So there it is, man. That's my team to watch out for in the Big Ten. They're looking really, really good.